The amount of money we've spent in 6 months is actually absurd, but oh baby, it was worth it. Welcome to another Gaz Right video. We're in a lovely little 15-floor apartment in Brisbane in Australia, and we're going to be breaking down the full 6 months of the trip, all the figures, country by country, and a total figure at the end. If you are going to skip to the end and skip through all the countries, just listen to this one bit because there are a few parameters that might impact your thinking on what we've done. Ultimately, me and Em are not budget traveling. We've saved up enough to enjoy ourselves, and we have a rough budget that we're working towards, but we're not trying to save money at every single stop. So you could have done this a lot cheaper. We've also done 17 countries in 6 months, which is fairly aggressive. So yeah, it goes without saying, if you want to save money, don't take as many flights. And then some of the countries we've stayed in for like 2 days, some of the countries such as Indonesia, Bali, we stayed for 2 months. So obviously that drastically impacts the cost if you're taking a flight every 2 days and putting that up. And this is going to be the cost per person. But like I say, so if I have like accommodation, that's split 50-50 between me and Em. But all the figures today are just to myself for one person. So I'm going to do a spend per day and the total spend at the end. I'll break down the flights, the countries, and everything in between. It's an absolute aggressive figure. If you do find it useful, if you have any questions, where we've been, what we've been up to, bang it in the comments. I respond to every single message. Let's get straight into it, baby. So pre-traveling, the two key things you're going to be looking at are the insurance and your vaccinations and injections. My injections are £210 because I already had like yellow fever and quite a lot of the standard ones. The main one you're going to get is rabies. You need 3 shots. Make sure you get that in advance. And then insurance as well is going to be a huge figure because when you go traveling, you don't have an end date. So it's not like you're going on holiday and say I'm flying from the 15th to the 20th or whatever it may be. So you have to have very specific travel insurance. Mine was £487.50. So that totals out at £697.50 for the pre-traveling. We had loads of other factors sorting our house out and stuff, but that's not going to be specific to you guys. I'm just going to rattle through the flights super quick. So like I say, we've done 17 different countries. So these are all the flights between the countries. Certain countries where we've done like an inner city flight like Australia, Indonesia, I've included that in the country spending. So these are the main ones to run through. So UK to the Maldives, £705. Maldives to Sri Lanka, £180. Sri Lanka to India, £177. India then to Nepal, £79.50. Nepal to Malaysia, $438. We had our pants pulled down on that. I actually nearly died on that flight because they served everyone peanuts. If you want to go back and check that vlog, carnage. Malaysia to Cambodia, $65. A beautiful bit of kit. Cambodia to Laos sets back $190. Laos to Vietnam, £120.20p. Vietnam to South Korea, both banging countries, 181. South Korea to China was 174. China then to Mongolia was 193. Mongolia to the best city in the world, it's Japan, and that sets back £304.50. Japan to the Philippines, £118.18. The Philippines to Singapore was 135. Singapore to Bali, where as I said we spent 2 months of our time, was £165.50. Bali to Timor Leste, which I don't know anyone else that has been there. Same for Mongolia actually. So if you've been there, let me know in the comments. It was 185, and then Timor Leste to Australia, where we are now, was 171. So just on flights alone, I've spent £3,581.88. So fairly aggressive on the flight front from a financial standpoint, and yeah, not too good on the carbon footprint, but yeah, do you know what I mean? You want to go to these flair places, you've got to be getting the flights. If you want to save money, you can do like the buses and stuff, especially between like Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. But you know, we're the bougie backpackers if you've followed us for a little while. So I'll go through the countries. I've got like a total spend, but then I've broken it down into a daily spend because, do you know what I mean? If we spend 2 days in a country, but you're going to spend 2 weeks, it's not really good saying, oh, well, Gaz spent 500. If you're going to spend 10 times the amount of time, it's going to cost you a lot more. So I'll give you the total figure, and then obviously the daily spend as well. And if there's any little nuggets, wisdom, thoughts in each country, I'll chuck that in as we go. So the Maldives, up number 1. That kind of shows you we set the bar pretty high. The bougie backpackers straight into the Maldives. We stayed on a local island, so it wasn't anything too crazy, but we spent £374.57, 4 nights there, daily spend £93.64. Like I say, that was our first big flight going there, so that was obviously, yeah, a huge flight at the start, £705. And I guess the biggest expense there. I actually thought Mafushi, where we stayed, the local island, was pretty cost effective, to be fair. The food was fairly reasonable. You couldn't drink because it's a local island, and the trips were actually pretty good. It's like $45 for a boat trip. So if you do want to do the Maldives on a budget, it is possible. All the videos are going to be on the channel for every single place we've been to. Sri Lanka, sunsets and safaris, unbelievable time there. We spent £853.34. I need to stop saying we spent 12 days there, so it worked out at £71.12 a day. Every single place, the main cost for us was the travel between places. So in Sri Lanka, you can get like the local buses and stuff like that. We were getting a private taxi door to door, which it soon adds up. Goes without saying, but for the comfort, the flexibility, the freedom, I would always say it's worth it. It was pretty aggressive though. India, £153.71, 3 days there, in and out, straight to Agra. Well, went to New Delhi, got taxi to Agra, 3 days. Taj Mahal, absolutely phenomenal, £51.24. Everything in India is super affordable when you're getting tuk-tuks, when you're eating out, and stuff like that. So to be honest, there wasn't any crazy expenses there. We then moved on to Nepal, hiking in the Himalayas, beautiful scenery, beautiful backdrop, and of course our guide Locke, legend of the scene. We spent we spent, I can't even read my own notes, £289.39. 4 days, daily spend £72.35. The biggest expense there, we did a 3-day 2-night hike, which was £181.50 each, all your meals included, all your accommodations and stuff. So I would say that's obviously the biggest expense, but I think for what we got, the scenery we saw, the experience we had, absolutely unbelievable value. We then took that killer flight literally through the night, served everyone peanuts to Malaysia. I was delirious by the time I got there because I thought it was the end when they were giving the peanut sign. I spent £790.41 with a daily spend of £98.80. Certain countries where the accommodation, like Australia, Malaysia wasn't too bad, but it's a little bit more than obviously Vietnam, Cambodia, those sort of places. That's where it soon adds up. If you're paying we're paying £50 a day at the minute in Australia, and do you know what I mean? If you're trying to get under £100 a day, that's our rough target. Do you know what I mean? Half your budget's gone and food's more expensive. So they're the sort of countries where it soon added up, but yeah, still under the £100 mark. Cambodia, we only spent 2 nights here, but it was unbelievable value. I ended up spending £173.28. Average daily spend is £86.64, but I did have a big hospital bill because, yeah, I got put in hospital with some food that our hotel gave me. Told them I was allergic to nuts, served me like a peanut kebab. Obviously, I've never had peanuts before because I'm allergic, and yeah, straight to the hospital. So that was a little bit more than average. All the drinks there and stuff like that are super, super affordable. I would probably say that is the most affordable place of everywhere we've been. So if you do want to keep the cost down, spend as much time in Cambodia as possible. We spent 6 nights in Laos, £308.78 in total. Laos, we did Vang Vieng and Luang Prabang, both absolutely banging, silly value again, so would definitely recommend that. We then went from Laos to Vietnam, where we took things a little bit slower. As you've seen for our trip, we have high costs because we're spending short times in each places, and then obviously the flights in between, so it does soon add up. Vietnam, total spend was £1,130.64, but we did spend 3 weeks there, so it actually only averaged out at £51.46 per day. This will be a lot less as well. Again, we got a private taxi between multiple different places, our own train booth or carriage when we were going between Hue and Ninh Binh, or Ninh Binh and Hue, whichever way around it was. And I can't eat any of the local food in like Vietnam and these countries because of the nuts. So it was slightly more, but still coming in at £51 a day. I reckon if you ate local food, did a bit more budget travel and stayed in a hostel, you could probably travel for like £15 a day in Vietnam. It's absolutely outrageous. So much to see, amazing country, beautiful people. We then moved to South Korea. Total spend $981.39, which averaged out over 12 days is £81.78. South Korea was, I think, fairly good value when you went out, doing things, exploring the city, the food, but the accommodation there was crazy. I'll have to look back and see if I did a room tour. We literally stayed, it was like a car park with all these high-rise buildings, and we were just in the middle. It looked like a little like air raid shelter, probably the worst accommodation we've stayed in so far, and it was actually crazy, like £43 each a night. So yeah, that was the killer. in South Korea. We then moved into China. I've been to China about 6 years ago. Didn't really enjoy it that much. Thought the Great Wall was amazing, but wasn't blown away by China. This time we went, absolutely loved it. The people, the atmosphere, our experience, all phenomenal. But in terms of spending, £421.08. Break that down over 5 days, £84.21. But yeah, China massively up in my experience there. We then moved over to Mongolia. Crazy place, the actual nomads, not the digital nomads, the real nomads of the world. £343.47. Daily spend £57.24. I will say quickly on Mongolia, if you are going to go there, go and book trips, like a 10-day trip, do all the big things. I would probably say spend as little time in Ulaanbaatar as possible, because we stayed there and then did day trips out of it. It's so difficult to get outside the city. The traffic, horrendous, but when you get outside the city, amazing scenery, like you're on a completely different planet, like nothing I've ever seen before. Then from Mongolia to the promised land, we went to Japan. Japan spending £1,415.06. Daily spend was £108.85. The accommodation there was a killer. It's like £50 each a day. You're staying in a shoebox. In Japan and South Korea, especially, like, I'm pretty tall, like I'm 6'3". Everywhere I was going, I was ducking, even like, yeah, going between like the door frames, in the showers, crazy. I literally got the worst lower back ever from walking around with with an absolute hunch. So that was pretty mental. We then traded the city life for the beaches, the most phenomenal crystal clear water you will ever see. Get yourself to the Philippines. We spent £1,284, daily spend of £75.05. Again, really, really affordable there. We said no private accommodation. You can drop that down really easily. The biggest expense was we did like a 3-day, 2-night boat trip. We stayed on like really secluded islands in the middle of nowhere, but for the value, the food, everything you got, unbelievable. Definitely recommend that. Go check that out on the channel. From the Philippines, we moved into Singapore, where, yeah, we got our absolute pants pulled down by the cost. It goes without saying, Singapore's a super expensive place. If you don't want to spend a lot of money, don't go there. Drinks, food, anything. Even if you go to like happy hours, budget-friendly places, still £7, £8 a pint. We went to all the touristy places there because we're tourists, we wanted to check them out. Marina by the Sands, raffles, all that good stuff. And that is why for 3 days we spent £384.71. Daily spend £128.24. Marina by the Sands, it's like £17 a pint, and we went to raffles to get a Singapore sling. You've got to get it ticked off the list, but it was £32 for a cocktail. Absolutely outrageous behaviour, but it is one of the safest, probably the safest and most clean places I've ever been to. Insane on that front. So yeah, it's like any country. There's pros, there's cons, and there's a little bit in the middle. As you can see, we were spending very, very little time in all these countries. But when we got to Indonesia, Bali, Lombok, we're taking things a little bit slower, relaxing, getting that little digital nomad lifestyle, getting back in the gym and just having a little bit of a reset. So we ended up spending 51 days in Indonesia. We spent I spent £3,661.26. Daily spend £71.29. Again, you can spend as much or as little as you want in Indonesia. We spent a lot of our time in Bali, which in general is more expensive than if you were going to Java. We did go over to Lombok, which we saved a lot of money, but we wanted to base ourselves in Bali. My mum and dad came visit us there. We did Uluwatu, Canggu, and Ubud. Phenomenal place. I always say to people, Bali isn't cheap, but it's amazing value for money. The quality and level of service that you get for the price is absolutely unmatched. So nothing but good words. Actually, I've got one bad thing about Bali and Canggu. It's the traffic. Oh my God. Between 4 and 7 p.m. every night, you cannot swing a cat around on those roads. It's absolutely ridiculous. That's how busy it is. And then our time was up in Bali. We were rested, recuperated. So we moved into Timor Leste. Again, another country. I don't know anyone that's been there. Crazy place, amazingly friendly people. Would definitely recommend it if you're going on the route we did, Bali to Australia, because there's only 2 countries where you can fly direct to Timor Leste, and they're the 2. So that would get a little country ticked off the list. 3 nights, £179.39 in total. Daily spend £59.80. So extremely economical. And yeah, like I say, with the food front, you could save even more money here. I had to eat in Burger King every day, once a day. Not good for the rig, but you know, kept me alive. I was a little bit worried on the nuts. From Australia, where we are now. it is not cheap. The main issue we've got here is we landed in Darwin, Darwin to Cairns, Cairns to the Gold Coast to Brisbane, Brisbane, and then we're going to be moving to Sydney in about 3 days' time. All the internal flights, you know what I mean, are they're fairly reasonable if you get the Jetstar ones, but the one from Darwin to Cairns was like £350 or £370, which is crazy for like a 1.5 hour flight. So that bumps up the daily average quite a lot. So far we spent £2,121.41 in 14 days. Daily spend 151. The accommodation here, you're probably looking at £50 a night. We're staying in a really flare apartment, to be fair, on like the 15th floor. Unbelievable. As I say, we're bougie backpackers. We've got Bateman travelling with us, my mate, at the minute. So it's a little bit more of like a holiday vibe. We had Liv come and meet us in the Gold Coast as well, rather than a pure travelling vibe. So we have spent a little bit more. We have been going out drinking a bit more, and we've been getting lots of flights internally. So it does bump that up. Hopefully that'll come down in the coming weeks. So total spend in the countries was £14,782.73, and then when you add that together, total spend for the pre-stuff, the flights, everything we've done so far in the first 6 months of the trip per person is £19,062.11. It's an absolutely outrageous figure. It breaks down to £104.16 per day. We're aiming to get between 90 and 100. I think Australia's just bumped that quite a lot over, the last 2 weeks. And then when we move into South America, hopefully it'll like even itself out, or might have to cut the trip short, or if a lot of people watch this video, get a little bit of the old YouTube monetization. We'll see where that takes us. I think like the key things to look at here are like, are you going traveling like to see as many places, experience as many cultures as possible like we're doing? And if the answer is yes, then we knew what we wanted to do. We knew how many countries we wanted to go to, and we worked out, a rough budget that we are traveling and we're not trying to be too crazy with our money, but we've saved up enough so we can enjoy things, stay in nicer places, get the private taxis. And like I say, some countries are cheaper, some are more expentive. Do you know what I mean? If you want to go budget traveling, don't be going to Australia, Singapore, Japan, South Korea. Do you know what I mean? That's going to set you back a lot. Go to your Vietnams, Cambodias, Laos, Thailands. That being said, you can do these countries cheaper. In every country we've gone to, you could stay in a hostel, you could eat more local food. That is probably the biggest killer for us really, is that I can't eat local food because I'm allergic to all nuts. So in a lot of like those countries we've been to, that we're not staying in a hostel, plus we're eating at say slightly nicer places. To be fair, a lot of places I've had to have like an Italian wood-fried pizza or Japanese. If you eat local food, stay in hostels, you're going to be saving an absolute shed load of money. That's not reinventing the wheel. That's what people know already. And also the biggest killer on the financial side is the flights. Do you know what I mean? If you want to save money but travel for a long time, just do less countries, travel slower, experience it more, get more immersed in the culture, the environment, the people. But don't do as many countries. Do you know what I mean? If you're doing a flight like we did in the first 3 months, every like 3, 4, 5 days, that is going to absolutely assassinate your budget. So it's not rocket science. Hopefully it was useful. Looking at that figure when I was breaking it all down over the last few days, £19,062.11 for the first 6 months. That's season 1, part 1 done, and we're moving into season 2 now. So it's going to be a hell of a season 2. Hopefully it was useful. If there was some use in there, do bang me a subscription down below. Any questions you've got, bang it in the comments. I respond to every single message. We're going to be exploring Brisbane. We've got Sydney up next, then into South America, islands, exploration, beerwaries, brunches, every single thing you can think of. We're going to be getting involved in the vlogs, even some fitness, getting the old cast on camera. I'd love you to be a part of the journey. I'll see you tomorrow, baby, and remember the chef, he's always cooking.